I'm a 32-year-old guy who never imagined I'd be pouring out this complete and utter mess of a situation on Reddit, but here I am, still trembling with rage as I type this. For the past decade, I've been grinding away as a veterinary technician at one of the busiest animal hospitals in town, not exactly raking in millions, making about $65,000 a year, but I genuinely love what I do. There's something incredibly rewarding about nursing sick animals back to health, even if it means daily battles with scratches, bites, and the occasional unexpected bodily fluid. The look on a pet owner's face when you save their furry friend? Priceless, way more valuable than any six-figure salary could ever be. But saving up for a house on a vet tech's paycheck? That's a whole different kind of battle. Since I was 22, I've been living like a broke college student, cramped in a tiny apartment with 3 roommates, one of whom ran some shady cheese. Import scheme from his bedroom. Don't ask, the smell still haunts me. Driving a beat-up old Honda Civic that probably shouldn't have been on the road, surviving on ramen and frozen burritos from sales. Meanwhile, my sister Sarah, 35, a walking stereotype of every entitled Instagram influencer wannabe, was living a completely different life. Imagine the most obnoxious, over-the-top influencer cliché, multiply it by 10, then add 3 kids from 3 different baby daddies, a never-ending string of pyramid schemes, and a lifestyle brand that's basically a front for scams. She's always posting these perfectly staged photos of her kids in matching designer outfits, captioned with, "Blessed Mama raising my tribe," while secretly dumping her kids on our parents so she can sip cocktails with her MLM friends at business meetings. And get this. She hasn't had a real job since quitting her Applebee's hostess gig in high school because, and I quote, "the uniform didn't match my aesthetic." Yet somehow, she always has the newest iPhone, a closet bursting with designer, bags and jets off on extravagant business retreats to Cancun. How? Because our parents, especially Dad, treat her like royalty while I'm treated like an afterthought. Growing up, if I asked for new shoes, it was, "Money doesn't grow on trees, son." But if Sarah needed a brand new MacBook because hers was last year's model, Dad's credit card magically appeared faster than you could say, "Daddy's princess." I tried not to let it eat away at me. Over the years, I focused on building my own life, still living with roommates in my late 20s, while Sarah lived rent-free in our parents' guest house, spending their money on private schools for her kids and monthly spa days. I worked every extra shift, picked up overtime, and poured every penny into my dream, owning a house. After nearly 10 years of sacrifice, ditching the bathroom carpet that probably predated me, painting over the previous owner's ridiculous neon orange kitchen, and slowly fixing up a modest 3-bedroom ranch in a decent neighborhood, it finally happened. The day I got the keys, I sat on my empty living room floor and cried. Maybe pathetic, but after watching Sarah be handed everything on a silver platter, it felt like real victory, proof that hard work actually pays off. But then, 5 years ago, everything took a nosedive when our parents gifted Sarah a stunning 4-bedroom mansion in the nicest part of town, the kind with security signs and Teslas in the driveway. Want to guess how long she kept it? Less than a year. She convinced Dad to sell it and fund her latest harebrained business idea, a weird mashup of juice cleanses and a music production company for her then-boyfriend, who took the money and vanished without a trace. Now she's back crashing rent-free in our parents' guest house, with them footing the bills for everything from her kids' private schools to her self-care spa treatments. Meanwhile, I'm still plugging away, fixing up my house room by room. Life was finally looking up, until last month when everything exploded. After one of the toughest shifts of my life, I came home exhausted, drained from emergency surgeries, and a German shepherd who swallowed a kid's entire toy collection. Then Dad calls, something in his voice off, forced, too casual, and 20 minutes later I watch through my window as Dad pulls up in his fancy Mercedes, followed by Sarah strutting out of a brand new Range Rover, decked in designer heels that cost more than my mortgage. They burst into my house like they own the place, with Sarah immediately tearing apart my furniture choices, my paint colors, even telling me my 8-year-old nephew doesn't need a TikTok studio in his room. Dad clears his throat, awkwardly laughs, and drops the bombshell. Sarah's going through some challenges. She jumps in with a dramatic eye roll, claiming she's pivoting her business model, While I sit there thinking about the $20,000 Dad sunk into her latest crystal meditation scam just months ago. I kept my mouth shut, but inside, I was burning up. Dad cleared his throat and said, "We've been thinking, the house is really too big for just one person. Your sister has 3 growing kids who need space to thrive. We think—" He paused, letting the weight hang in the air. "You should give Sarah your house." I swear I must have been hallucinating from exhaustion. Maybe this was some twisted dream fueled by too much coffee and the lingering scent of dog surgery. "Excuse me, what?" I barely got the words out before Sarah rolled her eyes so hard I was sure they'd get stuck. "God, don't be so dramatic. It's not like you're even using all that space," she said, waving her phone around, still recording. "I need a proper space for my content creation. The guest house lighting is totally killing my engagement metrics." I looked at Dad, waiting for the punchline. But no, he had that same look he always gets when Sarah demands something. "Just give in so we can avoid drama." "You can't be serious," I said. Leaning forward, Dad put on his reasonable businessman voice. "We've thought this through. You're young, single, focused on your career. You could easily get an apartment closer to the animal hospital. Sarah needs stability for the kids." I nearly choked. Stability? The same stability from the house you gave her and she sold to bankroll her ex's music career? Sarah's head snapped up, offended. "That was different. Jackson's mixtape was going to be huge. How was I supposed to know he'd bail to Miami? With that SoundCloud rapper?" Dad raised his hands, trying to smooth things over, but my blood was boiling. The past is the past. This is about family, helping your sister get back on her feet. I laughed, bitter and hollow. "Back on her feet? She's never been on her feet. You've carried her through every disastrous decision she's made." Sarah gasped like I'd personally offended her entire Instagram following. "I'm a boss, babe, running multiple businesses." "Pyramid schemes aren't businesses," I snapped. Then Dad dropped the ultimate threat, probably thinking it'd end this all. "Son, if you don't help your sister out, you might want to reconsider your position in the will." The room went dead silent. Even Sarah stopped recording. And in that moment, something inside me shattered. All those years of watching Sarah get everything handed to her while I busted my ass, all the times I kept quiet for peace, it exploded. I stood, ignored Sarah's "OMG, so rude," grabbed a folder I'd been quietly building since the day Sarah sold her house because, after years of vet tech work, I'd learned to document everything. I threw it on the coffee table, the thud oddly satisfying. "Let's do some math, Dad." I pulled out the first papers. "The house you gave Sarah in Oakwood Heights, worth $875,000 when you gave it to her. She sold it for $890,000. Where'd that money go?" Dad shifted uncomfortably. Sarah was suddenly fascinated by her nails. I laid out the receipts. $50,000 to Jackson's music career, who vanished 2 weeks later. $200,000 into her crystal healing empire, which lasted exactly 3 months before she declared crystals so 2022. $300,000 dumped into some magnetic alkaline water pyramid scheme that failed because people just weren't ready for hydration consciousness. Sarah interrupted, trying to spin it, but I kept going. Designer bags, that Range Rover she can't afford payments on, and God knows what else. Then came the kicker. "Dad, a real estate friend checked your current estate value. Your house, your investments, everything is worth less than what Sarah's house sold for. She's already had her inheritance, more than her fair share, and blew it all in record time." The silence was suffocating. Sarah's forced smile twitched nervously. Dad looked like he might have a stroke. I leaned back, daring. "Go ahead. Cut me out of the will. There's nothing left for me anyway." That was when Sarah erupted, shrieking, "This is so unfair. You can't just throw numbers around like this. Money isn't everything. What about my kids, their future?" I fired back, "The same kids you exploit for Instagram sponsors and try to turn into TikTok stars before they can even read?" She screamed, "At least I have kids. What do you have? A bunch of sick animals in this basic suburban nightmare." Dad found his voice. "Son, These numbers don't tell the whole story. Your sister's businesses were investments in her future. No, Dad, I cut him off. They were enabling her to dodge responsibility. And now that you've run out of favors, you want to take my house, the one I fought tooth and nail for, without your help. Sarah, full on tears now, tried to angle her face for the perfect influencer shot. You don't understand. I need proper space for my content. The guest house lighting is killing my engagement metrics. I laughed. Your followers? The ones you bought? I've got receipts for that too. Her jaw dropped. I pulled out another stack. 10,000 fake followers purchased just last month. Wonder what your sponsors would think about that. Dad tried to regain control. Enough. This behavior is why we're worried about you. This isn't how family treats each other. No, Dad, I said. This isn't how family treats each other. Family doesn't steal homes, enable one kid, while screwing the other, and definitely doesn't threaten to cut someone out of an already empty will. Sarah's mascara ran, waterproof my ass, but she still tried to film bits on her phone. My followers will hear about this toxic family drama. Post away, I said, pulling out one last document. But you might want to read this. First, the contract you signed with Dad when he gave you that house, the one saying you'd use the money responsibly. The one that technically makes you liable for fraud, since you lied about your business investments. The phone slipped from her hand, clattering to the floor. I stood up, gathering my papers with a cold finality. Now get out of my house. Both of you? And if you ever dare to threaten me with inheritance again, these documents go straight to a lawyer. After I kicked them out that night, I honestly thought that was the end of it. Who in their right mind would push further after being exposed like that? But no, I clearly underestimated just how entitled Sarah really is, and how far Dad would go to enable her reckless behavior. The next few days were eerily quiet, except for Sarah's passive-aggressive Instagram posts about toxic family drama and energy vampires. Pretty sure she was throwing shade at me. She even posted this long, self-absorbed story about how the universe makes you struggle to prepare for abundance, or some nonsense like that, all while posting from a spa day Dad definitely paid for, wearing yet another new designer outfit. Meanwhile, I was back at the animal hospital, grinding through my shifts trying to regain normalcy. I had this heartwarming case with a rescue pit bull who needed surgery. She's thriving now with her new family. Just as things seemed to be settling, last Thursday shattered the calm. I was in the middle of a complicated dental procedure on a cat. Seriously, cat teeth are way more complex than you'd think, when my phone started blowing up, buzzing relentlessly in my pocket. I usually don't check my phone during surgeries, but something felt wrong. During my break, I finally looked. The first message was from my next-door neighbor, Mike. Dude, there's a moving truck in your driveway. Then Karen, another neighbor, sent a message, genuinely worried, asking if everything was okay because she saw people hauling furniture into my house. Then came a flood of panicked texts from both of them about Sarah and Dad moving stuff into my home. My hands trembled as I called Mike. What the hell's going on? I asked, barely able to hold the phone. Mike told me they showed up about an hour ago with a U-Haul, movers, and a locksmith, claiming I'd given them the house. He thought it was strange but didn't want to jump to conclusions. I felt sick to my stomach. I told my supervisor I had a family emergency, an understatement if there ever was one, and raced home, my mind spinning. This had to be a mistake, right? No chance they were this insane. But there it was, a massive U-Haul parked right in my driveway, Sarah bossing around some clearly confused movers while filming the chaos for her Instagram, and Dad chatting with a locksmith who was actively changing my locks. Even Sarah's 3 kids were running wild in the front yard, screaming about choosing their rooms while she scolded them for ruining her live stream. The youngest, barely 2, was drawing all over my garage door with markers, and Sarah was too busy filming to notice. I slammed my car into the driveway, blocking the U-Haul, and stormed up to the front door. Sarah looked at me with sheer annoyance, like I was ruining her surprise for her followers. What are you doing here? You're totally killing my content flow. I was going to do a whole home renovation series. My blood boiled. What am I doing here? This is my house. Dad stepped in, trying to play calm and professional while a locksmith was breaking the law behind him. Son, since you're being unreasonable, we thought we'd help you make the right choice. You can't just leave your sister and her children homeless. Homeless? I spat. She lives in your guest house rent-free. Sarah rolled her eyes, still filming. That's not the point. The guest house doesn't have a home theater for my motivational Monday videos. I reached for my phone to call the cops, but Sarah showed her true colors. She grabbed my arm, still filming with the other hand, and said in this eerily calm voice, "Go ahead, call them. But remember, I have 3 kids. Who do you think they'll side with? The single guy who works with animals, or the poor single mom just trying to provide for her babies?" Dad nodded eagerly like this all made perfect sense. "Think about how this looks, son. Just let your sister have the house. We can find you a nice apartment." I turned to the locksmith, who was looking increasingly uncomfortable. "Did you verify who owns this house before changing the locks?" He shifted nervously. "They said it was family property." "Show him the papers," Sarah shrieked, her facade cracking. Dad fumbled through his briefcase, pulling out some obviously fake documents that looked like they were printed at Kinko's. But I had something better. I opened my phone, displaying the deed, mortgage papers, and property tax records, all legally filed in my name. The locksmith went pale. Sarah was still filming, screaming about toxic masculinity and how I was oppressing her dreams. Dad tried talking over everyone about family obligations and doing the right thing. That's when I did something that changed everything. I pressed dial and calmly said the words that shattered Sarah's Instagram perfect smile. "Yes, police? I'd like to report a breaking and entering in progress." What happened next was like watching a slow-motion train wreck, Instagram-worthy chaos. Sarah switched to full-on mommy influencer meltdown mode, shrieking, "Are you filming this? This is abuse. I'm literally shaking. My followers won't believe this toxic masculinity." Dad cycled through the 5 stages of grief in record time. "Son, think about what you're doing," he said, voice shaking as he tried to sound authoritative, but panic was bleeding through. "This is family. We can work this out." The locksmith, bless his heart, was frantically stuffing his tools into his bag like he was in some kind of insane speedrun challenge. Honestly, I don't blame him. This was probably not what he signed up for back in, locksmith school, if that's even a real thing. But then, just when I thought it couldn't get any more ridiculous, Sarah's oldest, Jaden, this kid who's clearly binged too much TikTok, decided it was the perfect time to launch his influencer career. This 8-year-old whipped out an iPad, probably more expensive than my first car, and started narrating the chaos like it was the next big viral video. "What's up, guys? Today we're watching my mom get a new house, but my uncle is acting. Super sus. I swear I'm not making this up." The cops finally showed up after what felt like forever, though it was probably just 10 minutes, and Sarah instantly flipped into her Oscar-winning, poor single mom routine. Think fainting. Goats, but with designer labels and crocodile tears. "Officers, thank God you're here. My brother is trying to keep me and my babies homeless." "Just look at their innocent little faces," she wailed, angling perfectly for the camera she hadn't stopped filming with. But here's the thing. Real cops don't fall for Instagram sob stories. "Ma'am, we need to see identification and proof of residence," the lead officer said, totally unimpressed by Sarah's theatrics. I pulled out my phone and laid it all out. Deeds, mortgage papers, tax records, everything in my name. Then I showed them my driver's license with my address. "These people are trying to break into my home. They hired a locksmith to change the locks while I was at work, and they're moving furniture in as we speak." Sarah tried to interrupt with some nonsense about family property and agreements, but the second officer cut her off cold. "Ma'am, do you have any legal documents proving your right to be here?" Dad stepped forward, fumbling with what looked like Kinko's special documents, and the officer literally sighed like he was dealing with kindergartners who'd done their homework in crayon. "Sir, these are not legal property documents. This looks like a PowerPoint presentation printed on fancy paper." The shade in that officer's voice was unreal. I almost felt sorry for Dad almost. The 2 officers exchanged looks that screamed, "We're so done with this." Then the lead officer told Sarah to stop filming and step off the property because this was a potential crime scene. Sarah's scream could have shattered windows 3 blocks away. "This is family business. This is about my children." The officer turned to me and calmly asked if I wanted to press charges. Sarah's confident, smug face dropped faster than her last failed MLM scheme. Dad started babbling about family, reputation, and something about his golf club membership. But the officers were having none of it. They took statements from everyone, including the very nervous locksmith who admitted he hadn't verified ownership properly and was now ready to cooperate fully. Even the movers showed their work order, which Sarah had doctored with a story about it being her investment property. Probably fraud, but I'm no lawyer. As one officer took statements, the other began supervising the removal of all the stuff they'd already brought in. You should have seen Sarah's face when they hauled out her hideous pink velvet couch monstrosity. Meanwhile, Dad was desperately trying damage control, on the phone with a lawyer who wasn't picking up, trying to keep Sarah from completely losing it and wrangling her kids who were still acting like this was some sort of YouTube challenge. Then Mason, Sarah's 5-year-old, dropped the bombshell. "Are we going to jail like when Mommy took stuff from the mall?" The officer's eyebrow shot up so fast it probably broke the sound barrier. "Ma'am, is there something else we should know about?" Sarah's face went through more filters than her entire Instagram feed. "He means when I had to return. Something," she stammered. "Mason, sweetheart, grown-up stuff, okay?" But Mason kept going. "But you said the security guy was mean for not believing you're a famous influencer, and then Dad had to pay the store." Sarah screeched, dropping her phone for the first time in this whole circus. "Go wait in the car!" The officers exchanged looks that said everything. One stepped aside to call dispatch to run Sarah's record while Dad looked like he was about to have a stroke. Meanwhile, the movers kept hauling out her ridiculous stuff, including a massive vision board plastered with photos of my house, glittered with the words, "Sarah's Empire." "Where do you want this?" one mover asked. Sarah lunged for it, claiming it was her manifestation board, carefully charged with crystals to align the energy. The officer firmly told her, all unauthorized items must be removed. Then, like clockwork, another patrol car pulled up. Mason's mall comment had opened a whole new can of worms, a warrant for Sarah's shoplifting. Turns out being an influencer doesn't give you the right to walk out of Nordstrom with unpaid merchandise, no matter how many followers. You have. The look on Sarah's face when they read her rights? Priceless. She even asked if she could pose for better lighting in her mugshot. Dad finally snapped, but not to help Sarah. No, he started desperately stuffing those fake property papers into his pockets like a kid hiding a bad report card. "Those are just family photos," he muttered. The officer wasn't buying it. As he sifted through the documents, his face grew serious. Turns out forging property documents is a serious crime. While one officer handled Sarah's arrest warrant, the other reviewed Dad's creative writing project. The locksmith pulled me aside, sweating bullets, begging me not to press charges. He swore he'd been misled and promised to make it right. I looked at the terrified man and made a decision that would prove crucial. I wouldn't press charges against him on one condition, that he give a full statement about how Dad and Sarah had pressured him with those fake papers. That statement sparked a full investigation. And karma? Oh, she wasn't done. Remember Mason's mall comment? It revealed Sarah's whole scam. She'd been accepting sponsorships, ordering products with promo codes, then returning everything for cash refunds, all while posting pre-filmed reviews with products she no longer had. Over 30 companies scammed. Dad's world unraveled further when the investigation revealed he'd been embezzling from his company to bankroll Sarah's extravagant lifestyle. Designer bags, private school tuition, the Range Rover, all paid with company money disguised as business expenses for a fake consulting firm under Sarah's name. The dominoes fell fast. Dad got fired and faces criminal charges. The company is suing him for every penny. Sarah is staring down multiple fraud charges on top of the shoplifting warrant. The one silver lining? Sarah's ex, Jaden's dad, stepped up and got custody of the kids. He's remarried to a child psychologist, living in a nice suburban home, and the kids are in therapy and public school. My house? Still mine. I fixed the garage door, painted over Sarah's neon pink disaster accent wall, and turned one spare room into a proper home office. The neighbors joke that my place is the most secure house on the block. And the best part? Last week I got a letter from Sarah, writing from her mom's place in Florida where she fled to dodge the media storm, begging for help with legal fees, claiming she's learned her lesson and wants to rebuild family bonds. She even offered to promote my veterinary clinic on her now shriveling Instagram, which lost 80% of its followers since the arrests. I snapped a picture of the letter, scrawled "No" across it in bright red, and mailed it back. Sarah's already hyped that she's in talks to play herself in the adaptation. Yeah, right. At this point, I just sit back and laugh. My house is paid off, my job is fulfilling, and I'll never again have to search my couch cushions for crystals or marker stains. Thanks for following this wild ride, Reddit. Sometimes the best family isn't the one you're born into, but the one you choose.